The ANC's 6th Policy Conference, we're joined now by PravinGordhan. He's, of course, a member of the ANC's NEC. Mr. Gordhan, good evening to you. Thanks for your time today. How have things been going? How have you found the commission so far, the conference so far?
No, excellent. Very lively. Lots of debates, lots of new ideas, and lots of passion for making sure that the ANC does the right things by South Africa and its interests.
What are you finding is coming out a lot? Because, of course, there has been this warning that if the ANC continues on what is viewed as a narrow, internal, self-centered path, then it won't go anywhere in its journey of recovery. So what are you getting a sense of out of these discussions?
No, precisely that. We have a huge responsibility, as previous generations of South African leaders have had within the ANC, much wiser and more developed than we were. Because why was the ANC created? It was created to unite South Africans at a particular point in time. Secondly, throughout its history, it's developed a philosophy around what democracy should mean, what non-racialism should mean, what sensitivity to gender and women's rights must mean, which is particularly important right now. And above all, to serve the poorer people in South Africa and make sure that we improve their standard of living. If we become self-centered, then it's about our own pockets and not about the welfare of society. So to the extent that we might have lost that focus a little bit in some areas of our work, we must use this as an opportunity to reorientate ourselves, to recognize that if we don't serve people, people can just kick us out of government, to put it plainly. And if we want to commit political suicide, then continue to do the wrong things. So the flip side of that coin is a recognition that on the one hand, let's look at the policy framework that we've had. Secondly, look at the progress that we've made, because there has been progress. And thirdly, recognize that there are new circumstances both within South Africa and outside of South Africa. And how do we capitalize on that in order to improve the economy, improve the energy situation, and above all, in the immediate environment, to help people to deal with high fuel prices, high food prices, high unemployment, the exasperation of youth, and energize different parts of the state so that we can do something about it. Some of it is being done excellently at the moment, and some things we can build on and improve.
Why do you think the party finds itself in this weak position that it's in today?
We probably lost our way along the way in becoming more interested in the fruits of government rather than making sure that the fruits are used for the benefit of the people. And often we are described as the ANC is corrupt, when in fact there are individuals in the ANC who are in fact corrupt. And thirdly, because at certain levels, our ability to provide the right kind of services to people, say local government for example, have not borne the right kind of fruit. And that's why these sorts of conferences give us the opportunity to reorientate ourselves and ask ourselves some serious questions. Are you here for the people, or are you here for yourself? Are you here for the country, or are you here for advancing your career? Now, you can both advance your career, because younger people are developing politics as a career. And what does it mean for us as a political organization? And if you like, older activists like us come from a very different culture of service, of mobilizing, of organizing, and of ensuring that we do the right things as well. But on the whole, I think there's a very optimistic direction that the discussions are going.
Of course, if we're going to reflect honestly about issues of corruption, it's not just members of the ANC that are found to be corrupt. If we look at the Zondo Commission report, it points to some policies of the ANC that have enabled an environment of corruption, such as the deployment committee and how it goes about doing its work and putting individuals in state-owned enterprises?
Yeah, I think the deployment issue sometimes gets construed the wrong way. All over the world, when your government loses and my government comes in, I obviously come in with officials and politicians who are going to occupy key positions. In the United States, for example, a new president walks in with 6,000 people. So the old president walks out with 6,000 people. When you lose, that's what you walk out with. When I walk in with a new crew, so to speak. When the British finally settle on who they want as their prime minister, you will see Johnson's people leaving and whoever is succeeding him bringing people in. So that's the first point. The second point is that the studies and retrospective look at state capture certainly shows that appointing ministers in the right place, officials in the right places, both in the government departments and in SOEs, was one component. The second component were people outside of government who were the brokers, so to speak, that some of the academics are calling. And thirdly, there was the masterminds who made sure that, I don't know, the estimates range between 50 and 100 billion rands leaving South Africa through our financial system and other ways as well. And along the way, you've had South African companies benefiting, but you've also had major multinational companies that have benefited as well. And they're clearly identified in those reports as well.
The point is that it happens under the watch of the ANC, and in some instances aided and abetted by members of the ANC,
yeah,
some of which have been deployed to those positions, who are clearly not the best capacitated to be in those positions.
No, sometimes you get very skillful people who actually know their job, but also decide that they will allow themselves to be corrupted in the way they were at the end of the day. So you can get a very good engineer running something, but making sure that they will pay 4 times, 5 times the price of a commodity or a part or whatever it is that they are buying, or an IT system that they are buying, and they then become beneficiaries. But the key point is there's a distinction between the organization and the individuals who have been doing this. Not everybody in the ANC is corrupt, and the ANC by definition is not corrupt. There are individuals that are corrupt, were corrupt, did benefit, have been identified in the Zondo Commission reports, and they are required in terms of our internal rules to take a proactive step, go to the Integrity Committee, explain whatever they have to explain, and then follow the guidance of the Integrity Commission.
Do you think South Africans give the party that benefit? Because even this idea that there are good people and bad people in the ANC, that there's a good ANC, there's a bad ANC, it seems to be a false dichotomy. And
no, it's not false. I didn't steal a single cent from anybody. And I'm a member of the ANC, so you can't call me corrupt. So like me, there are thousands of others who want the ANC to do the right thing, who want the ANC to be honest, who want the ANC to be principled, and who want the ANC to stick to its mission and not be diverted from its mission.
What is preventing it from doing that?
Doing what?
From not being corrupt, to sticking to its mission.
No,
what's preventing the party from doing that?
No, what prevented it was certain individuals used their position both within the ANC and within government, in different spheres of government, in order to abuse that power, in order to engage in corrupt activities, as has been shown at the Commission.
So do you, when you reflect on where the country is today, honestly believe that the era of corruption is over?
No, I think the scale of it, as we saw it during the state capture period and has been described by Chief Justice Zondo, doesn't exist at the moment. But within many institutions, many of the SOEs, for example, corruption is still happening. So there are people in certain entities who are deliberately part of syndicates, and some of us have said it publicly. So there's a coal syndicate that delivers a truck of coal, half of which is rubble and half of which might be coal. But it's treated as coal and it's paid for as coal. There are other types of syndicates that deliver fuel oil, for example. But the truck comes in, and the President has described that as well, appears to offload 100,000 litres of fuel oil, actually offloads nothing at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, and drives off, but gets paid for it by an insider. At the end of the day, there are people who are...
I'm going to pause you there. We'll continue the conversation in a moment. I've just got a break coming up. We'll continue the conversation. ANC NEC member PravinGordhan. We continue the conversation here in Nasrec. You're right. We've touched on a number of issues, and we'll get to some of the issues around consequence management in the party, because it really is about the renewal of the ANC. PravinGordhan talks about how those that are participants in corruption, guilty of wrongdoing, have been identified, and that signals the fact that the party is moving in the right direction. Of course, the reality is some of those members are in this very meeting. Some of them are heading some of the very commissions we talk about. So what does that really mean? Is there truly a process of renewal? But before we get to that, Mr. Gordhan, I want us to talk about this issue of electricity, because it's really what is driving South Africans up the wall. Everybody has had it with load shedding. Do you think voters are going to punish you for that as a party?
We don't know, and the frustration is perfectly understandable of both businesses and of people at home. There are critical times when they want electricity and they want to do certain basic things like cook meals and study and so on, that the lights are not on. And that is why the President, over the last few weeks, has been working extremely hard amongst 5 or 6 of our key ministries, for a start, and with a whole lot of constituencies outside, to develop the plan which he announced a few days ago. And a plan which says, Eskom, you better do better than you're doing at the moment in terms of giving us more megawatts from the existing mix of plants that you have, whether it's nuclear, hydro, and in particular the coal-powered plants, and do better maintenance and try to overcome some of the malfeasance that is still within the system itself, where there are outside players that are also actually involved. The second is that let's find some solutions to some short-term energy requirements. In other words, can we connect, if you have, there are firms in South Africa that have 100 megawatts or 50 megawatts extra that are available. Eskom, go ahead. The procurement process has been made easier. Buy that, those extra megawatts and put it onto the system as well. The third is all of our departments are under instruction and have been directed to cut red tape so that we make the processes of procurement, of giving permits and other processes shorter, quicker, and more coordinated. And as he announced, there's a kind of one-stop shop that has now been put in place, and the presidency has a number of senior people, including the DG herself, who will make sure that these things actually happen. And you'll hear more about this in the next few days when we elaborate that. And then the fourth is to get more investment, both from the state, where that capability exists, financially and otherwise, and from the private sector as well. So if you want to set up a solar plant and you can sell directly to the municipality, go ahead. If a municipality has the opportunity to buy megawatts outside of this Eskom electricity system, you can go ahead as well and do that. So there's a number of pathways that have been opened up, some of which will give us immediate relief. Some, there might still be bits of load shedding, but a lot more controlled, we hope, than has been over the last few weeks, when the illegal strikes seriously impacted on 5 or 6 power stations and their ability to produce the megawatts. And all of that in the medium term will begin to give us more and more megawatts on the system, an extension of the transmission grid into Eastern Cape and Northern Cape. But there's a lot of money involved there, something between 100 and 150 billion rands over 10 years needs to be put into extending the grid. But if you can get that process going, and we've got the transmission company now established as a separate part of Eskom, under Eskom Holdings. So there are a number of moving parts right now, and certainly we'll see every 6 months, I think we will see improvements.
Eskom's financial position is a great risk to the sovereign as it stands. The IMF recently recommended that government take on that debt that Eskom has. Is that something that this policy conference is going to be discussing? That's
sort of already built into the decision making. That the President said that the Minister of Finance will announce something in October when he announces the medium-term budget policy statement, and the Treasury colleagues are working on that. So a bit of patience between now and the third week of October.
What does that mean, though? Does that mean that there are active conversations taking place in government about whether government should take on this debt, and if it does, how that would work?
The mechanics of it, yes.
But it's certainly something you're looking to do.
That the finance people are working on it and will be announcing in October. So there's absolute deadline, if you like, which the Minister of Finance himself has set, that by October I will tell the country where we are going on this issue.
The difficulty, of course, is that all of these projects, or at least some of them that you've mentioned, need quite a big capital injection to get going. So where's that money going to come from if the issue of the debt is still also a big question mark?
That's all part of that equation that needs to be built in. I know you're tempting me into an answer, which I don't have. So these are technical areas. What does it mean to bring billions of rands onto the sovereign balance sheet is an important question. In other words, you're increasing your debt at a time when interest rates are increasing, both here and elsewhere in the world. And that has implications for the second thing, which is how much of interest are you going to now pay on that debt, which will also shoot up. And thirdly, when that shoots up, it crowds out other expenditure. So part of the responsibility that the Treasury has, since I've been there, I know what it means, is to balance all of these factors out in a way in which it's a sustainable solution for the country as a whole.
SOEs have developed a bad rep in this country because they're seen mostly as being dysfunctional, as being a resource drain on the country's fiscus. There's been talk over a number of years about what to do, especially with the big number of SOEs, and questions about whether or not we in fact need all of them. There hasn't been much progress beyond just that. I mean, we're sitting again with SOEs like Denel, whose financial position is precarious, haven't been able to pay staff in months, and there doesn't seem to be anything forthcoming about how we help these SOEs, if in fact we'll help them, out of the positions they're in.
So you'll remember that the President established the Presidential SOE Council, half of which is government ministers, half of the team that he put in place is from the private sector. And the private sector team is divided into 3 different work streams. The first one has been looking at what are the structural options in terms of how you house these entities and how do you govern them. And the Zondo Commission has also come up with some ideas more recently on that. So those are the 2 key areas there. The second stream is looking precisely at the financing issue, and they've looked at some of the bigger SOEs and have come to similar conclusions that you have. What do you do with the Eskom debt, and how do you structure that as well? And the third one is the important one in respect of your question, which is, do you need all of these? And if you don't need them, how do you consolidate them? So some departments have actually moved ahead, small business being one. They had 2 different entities. They're in the process of merging them. But in some cases, they're created by legislation. So you've got to amend the legislation before you can get the merger itself completed. So they will come up with recommendations, and they're moving on that already.
Is privatization one of the key things that is being looked at when it comes to...
That's a dirty word in South African politics.
Yes.
So what we do as the ANC is to ask the question, do we need private sector involvement, and do we need private sector capital? Because the state doesn't have, as you said earlier on, all of the capital to take care of all of these issues. So that SOE Council will come up with solutions, and one of the solutions that they've proposed to the President is the idea of a holding company for the 3, 4 or 5 major strategic entities which are able to stabilize themselves sooner rather than later. The second is to cut down the number, and that's the second set of proposals that will come in. Third, we have short memories, and that is what damage the state capture do to these huge institutions. In Transnet, for example, we complain about the fact that not enough coal, for example, could be exported through Richards Bay. But the fact of the matter is that there was this very infamous 1064 locomotive deal, 1,064 locomotives. And that stuck in a court process with 2 Chinese companies, and Transnet is running short of a couple of hundred locomotives at the moment. And there are 300 locomotives that are stuck in South Africa because you can't access parts from these companies. All of this is a legacy of state capture. And today, the current management and the board has to solve all of those problems.
So then, how do you feel, just to end it off, how do you feel about the fact that some of your colleagues who have been named in the Zondo Commission of Inquiry report are not only still members of the ANC, but are still senior members of the ANC, actively participating in processes of the ANC? And there doesn't seem to be any clear way that the ANC is processing that Zondo Commission report or even holding its members accountable.
No, there is a paper that has been prepared in response to the Zondo Commission report, so you might be able to access it. I'm not too clear on what you can and can't access.
We were chatting with the Treasurer General who said that there are processes, but there was nothing clear that you could tell us about.
So firstly, there's a paper, so that will be adopted here or commented on in the commissions, which would have happened in the morning session today, and I think there's a fairly clear line there. Secondly, part of that is a response from the ANC side to the Commission. Thirdly, within government itself, each of the relevant departments where these SOEs were have been asked over the period when the reports have been released by the Commission to prepare an action list. We've been doing that, for example. The Eskom board has been doing it. The Transnet board has been doing it. I'm sure the PRASA board has been doing something, and so on. And all of that will be consolidated by the Presidency and submitted to Parliament in October. But we're not waiting just for that. Where charges have to be laid, they have been laid. Where the SIU investigations have taken place, those matters have gone to the SIU tribunal so that money could actually be collected from those as well. And then internally, like I said earlier on, there is a pathway. And the pathway is all of you be humble enough, voluntarily go to the Integrity Commission, say whatever you want to say, and then we'll have to follow whatever recommendation the Integrity Commission makes. So I think you have a range of actions that are being taken, because neither South Africans nor ANC members want us to just sit still and say we're ignoring this whole period, we're ignoring the impact of this whole period, and we're ignoring Judge Zondo's Commission recommendations at the end of the day. We need to respond to them, and where possible we need to act on them.
You are big on being against corruption, and this is going to be my last question to you. What would you say the impact of the current scandal involving the president of your organization has been on the party?
No, I think everybody wants to know what is the real story, so to speak. And I'm sure soon he'll be able, now that he's addressed the public protector, he'll be able to address the country and say this is the real story. So until then, we wait for the real story.
Have you not been told the real story?
No, not me.
As the NEC?
No, I think there are legal processes involved, and we've been told that. And until those processes are complete, he was unable to indicate exactly what is going on. And I'm sure that he has a credible explanation to offer at the end of the day.
So you're giving him the benefit of the doubt until then?
Yes, why not?
Okay. That is ANC NEC member PravinGordhan.